Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Nicholas Budsberg, and I'm a maritime archaeologist and the administrative director of the Lighthouse Archaeological Maritime Program, or LAMP as you may know it. We are the research division for the St. Augustine Lighthouse and Maritime Museum. I'm also acting captain of the research vessel Empire Defender that we have here as part of our institution. And I will be answering your questions today. I have a list here of pre-submitted questions from you all. And I'll be completing this Ask Your Expert. I don't know about an expert, but currently I'm finishing a doctorate in Maritime Archaeology through Texas A&M University. And so I hope I can answer all your questions. I've glanced over this, but I'm not sure of everything in detail. So we'll take a look at this together and see what we've got. Our first question, how large is the research vessel? All right, well, it's a good question because research vessels can come in all shapes and sizes. Ours, I'd probably say, is in the medium range. Ours is around 33 feet long. It's got a swim platform that sticks off the back. It adds another 3-4 feet onto it. So it's around 37 foot if you included absolutely everything on the boat. That platform helps us get in and out of the water easily while we're doing our diving activities. But it's also a place to store artifacts, to kind of do some of the wet and dirty work that won't be directly inside the boat. How many archaeologists do you currently have on staff at the Lighthouse? Well, currently we have 3 full-time maritime archaeologists. We also have 3 full-time conservators that are a part of the Lighthouse Research Division, as well as curation members, education members, and all sorts of other people. Often we will have 4 full-time archaeologists. So if you are a maritime archaeologist, let us know. We're not sure when this application would open up, but likely in the future we'd have something coming out. What education training do you need to become an archaeologist? All right, well, another good question. This gets a little confusing, and I remember when I was looking into this, I was quite confused. But there isn't really a bachelor's degree in archaeology per se. The education requirements is you have to start with that bachelor's degree. It's typically through anthropology, because in the United States at least, archaeology is considered one of the 4 fields of anthropology. It's looking at materials and things from the past. So if you look into some anthropology courses and you start there, that's where most archaeologists get their foundation, is looking at the people and how we change, and then we get into the material aspects of it, so to speak. After that, you will likely get into graduate school. And so archaeology is one of those degrees because you kind of start off in a general anthropologist position, but then you start to get specific. And so you start with a master's, or you can move on to a PhD. Some tracks, like the one I'm on, do a full jump, take you from that bachelor's to the PhD. But that's really you get to dive into archaeology, pun fully intended in our field. But you get to specialize in something. You really get good topical courses that are focused on just archaeology and let you hone down on something more specific. Almost all archaeology graduate programs require some kind of field work or field school specifically before you can get involved. So that is one reason why LAMP offers a maritime archaeology field school every summer. The caveat is that it's not this summer. We canceled our field school for safety concerns because of the pandemic. But for next summer, most likely, and certainly going forward, field schools can range anywhere from 2 weeks to 5 weeks. Some are 8 or even more weeks. But generally they're going to give you a full intensive background and really put you into that field work, hands-on stuff. You share tight quarters with lots of people. Sometimes you have to cook and clean. Oftentimes in ours you're diving as well as doing on-site terrestrial work. So it really can depend on what you're looking for, but they're worth looking into. It's also a really good chance to travel and to get to a region that you'd be interested in knowing more about. So if you're interested in Mayan archaeology, for example, check out field schools that would get you into Central America or working on Mayan culture. That's going to be really a way for you to help focus in and know, do I want to study this once I go to grad school, or is that the right path? So very good question. Let's see, how often do you find shipwrecks? Oh, well, that's a very good question. And this can really depend. It depends on what you're doing and what kind of institution you're working at. So when you're looking for one specific ship, it's rather difficult. So when people go off looking for one vessel, there's a record of it going down. The ocean is a pretty big place, and surveys that we do can cover lots of area, and you're looking for a relatively small thing on the seafloor. It can be hundreds of feet, but that doesn't mean that much when you're surveying over miles and miles of open ocean trying to see down what's below you. That said, when you take an approach like we have at LAMP, we're really interested in that whole maritime cultural landscape, as we call it. So we're looking at things that happened 50 to 100 years ago, as much as we're interested in things that happened 450 or even further years ago. And so learning about everything that is off our coasts is important to us. So we do broad surveys. We try to cover general areas. At present, I believe we have a little more than 44, 45 sites total that we've looked at, not just shipwrecks. But then there's at least a dozen, if not about 24 shipwrecks out of that, that we've worked at or partially investigated. It'd be nice to say that you could average maybe 1 or 2 shipwrecks a year when you're thinking about it. But oftentimes when we're doing survey projects for other types of contract work, like modern construction or things, you'll find technically boats and ships that may have wrecked, but they're more modern, and so they're not necessarily new. On one recent project that we did, I guess it was 3 that we found within a couple weeks, but they're all modern sailboats made of fiberglass, nothing really for historical research purposes. Otherwise, yeah, it's exciting as heck to find a new shipwreck, because you never really know what's going to be there. And oftentimes when we're doing our surveys, we find something that kind of is a signal to us that there might be a shipwreck there, like a magnetic reading. We use a magnetometer, which is like a big metal detector, and that'll say, hey, there's something ferrous down there, there's something iron or otherwise magnetic. And if you dive on it, then you have to probe or dig around to actually figure out what it is. So we'll get dozens of anomalies, of these magnetic anomalies that we have to investigate, and 1, maybe 2 get to be shipwrecks that you get to further work on.